Welcome to College Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Australia appalled after China hands writer suspended death sentence. It's time to celebrate the nanny state, not apologize for it. A 200-year-old boys' school is going co-ed, very few are complaining. Here's how 2 sentences in the Constitution rose from obscurity to ensnare Donald Trump. 1 in 5 Japanese university students do not want children, survey. Australia appalled after China hands writer suspended death sentence. Nikkei Asia. Australia has summoned China's ambassador to express its concerns after a Chinese court handed Australian writer and democracy activist Yang Hengjuan a suspended death sentence. The sentence, delivered by a court in Beijing, comes more than 5 years after the 58-year-old was detained at Guangzhou's main airport in 2019 and almost 3 years after his closed-door trial in May 2021 over alleged espionage. The sentence is suspended, which means it can be converted to a life sentence after 2 years if Yang does not commit any serious crimes by then. It's time to celebrate the nanny state, not apologize for it. Bloomberg. The concept of the nanny state is losing its negative connotation as people recognize the need for government intervention to improve public health. The term has historically been used to criticize policies aimed at protecting citizens, such as speed limits and smoking bans. However, the assumption that individuals are rational and capable of making decisions in their best long-term interests is unrealistic. People can be deceived about their own interests, and in an age of preference-shaping algorithms and powerful advertising industries, the state has a responsibility to protect citizens from the influence of these forces. The biggest threat to freedom comes from corporations that have more power over our preferences than ever before. The nanny state should be seen as an opportunity to improve lives and free ourselves from the control of big companies. A 200-year-old boys' school is going co-ed, very few are complaining. The Sydney Morning Herald. St. Mary's Cathedral College, the oldest Catholic school in Australia, has opened applications for girls to enroll alongside boys for the first time. The school, which has previously enrolled girls at various times throughout its history, cited demand for places as the reason for the decision. Sydney Catholic Schools plans to increase enrollments from 835 to 1,400 students when it becomes fully coeducational. Some parents and Catholic groups have expressed support for the move, while others have voiced opposition. St. Mary's Cathedral College is the 5th coeducational school created by Sydney Catholic Schools in the past decade. Here's how 2 sentences in the Constitution rose from obscurity to ensnare Donald Trump. Associated Press. The U.S. Supreme Court is scheduled to hear arguments over whether Donald Trump can remain on the ballot in Colorado, where the state Supreme Court ruled that he violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. It's the first time in history that the court has heard a Section 3 case. Legal scholars believe the only time it was cited in the 20th century was to deny a seat in Congress to a socialist on the grounds that he opposed U.S. involvement in World War I. Before the violent January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, even many constitutional lawyers rarely thought about Section 3, a provision that isn't taught at most law schools and hadn't been used in court for more than 100 years. Norma Anderson is a former Republican leader of Colorado's General Assembly and State Senate, and eventually would become the lead plaintiff in the case now before the Supreme Court. The evening of January 6, she read the provision that prohibited anyone who swore an oath to support the Constitution and later engaged in insurrection against it, or provided aid and comfort to its enemies, from holding office. Crew was focused on Trump's impeachment and other possible legal penalties against those who participated in the Capitol attack before exploring other remedies. By January 2022, the group decided to test Section 3 in court. Citizens for Responsibility in Ethics, also known as Crew, chose Colorado because it had a clear process for a quick challenge in trial court that would be fast-tracked on appeal to the state Supreme Court. They hired Denver attorney Martha Tierney, who served as general counsel of the state Democratic Party, and Mario Nicolez, a former Republican election lawyer. 1 in 5 Japanese university students do not want children, survey. Japan Times. A recent survey conducted on Japanese university and graduate school students has shown that 1 in 5 students do not want to have children. The survey, which focused on students expected to graduate in 2025, found that 19.2% of respondents expressed a lack of desire to have children, compared to 13.1% in the previous year's survey. Financial concerns were cited as one of the main reasons for this trend, as students expressed worries about the cost of raising a family. The results suggest that economic concerns may be influencing the life choices of this generation. Monday's time schedule. Associated Press. The article provides a schedule of upcoming basketball games, including NBA and college basketball games. It lists the teams and times for each game. Indonesia's Prabowo takes flak for slow brains remark in final election debate. South China Morning Post. Indonesia's presidential frontrunner, Prabowo Subianto, is on the defensive following the final televised debate before the election. Prabowo has been promoting his $25.4 billion program of free meals for schoolchildren and pregnant mothers, but has faced criticism from fellow presidential hopeful Ganjar Pranowo. Ganjar believes that the scheme is an intervention that will come too late and that there should be more focus on checking the health of future brides and grooms. Prabowo has also received criticism for his comments about free internet, with Ganjar planning to implement the program if elected. Prabowo responded by saying that he agrees with free internet, but that free meals for poor people should be prioritized. Prabowo has the perceived backing of President Joko Widodo despite not being the PDIPS candidate. The final debate was described as subdued and lacking sparkle, with the candidate's talk of women's rights being criticized as ironic for only referring to women as mothers. Prabowo also received criticism for his comments about disabled people during the debate. Commanders to hire Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator. Washington Post. Washington Commanders have agreed to a 3-year contract with Cliff Kingsbury, former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, to be their offensive coordinator. Kingsbury had been in line for the Las Vegas Raiders offensive coordinator role but withdrew his name from consideration. The Commanders are keen to rebuild both their team and franchise, which began last year with the purchase of the team and the appointment of a general manager, and Kingsbury is considered an ideal candidate to help turn the team around. China bets on open-source chips as U.S. export controls mount. Yahoo! China is increasingly using RISC-V, a free and open-source instruction set architecture, to reduce its dependence on Western technology and circumvent U.S. sanctions. The Beijing-based PLA Academy of Military Sciences has reportedly used RISC-V to reduce malfunctions in chips for cloud computing and smart cars, while the Shanghai Government Science and Technology Commission said in April that the biggest advantage of the architecture is its geopolitical neutrality. RISC-V is free to use, has a simpler outline, and users can build on top of the framework to suit their needs. Half of the over 10 billion RISC-V chips shipped globally by 2022 were made in China, according to China Daily. Beijing and Chinese state entities invested at least $50 million in RISC-V projects between 2018 and 2023, according to a Reuters review. In Kenya, the king of the jungle faces a new challenge: ants. Washington Post. Big-headed ants, which arrived in Kenya in the early 2000s, have disrupted the ecosystem in the Ol Pejeta Conservancy by killing native acacia ants. These acacia ants protect trees from elephants and other herbivores in Kenya by swarming into their nostrils and biting them when they try to eat the tree's leaves, branches and bark. With fewer acacia ants, elephants have been able to knock down and eat more whistling thorn trees. With fewer trees, lions have lost the cover they rely on to stealthily attack zebras, their primary prey. Inside the crisis gripping France's food industry. Telegraph. Farmers in France are protesting against low pay and a mountain of environmental regulations, claiming that they are threatening the country's ability to feed itself. The farmers are also angered by a growing reliance on cheaper imported food. Many French farmers now fear for the future of their industry, as the number of farms in France has fallen by about 100,000, or 20%, in the last decade. The industry is also struggling to recruit, as there is little to offer younger generations. France now imports about half of its fresh produce from abroad. Soaring prices since the pandemic have worsened the situation. The French have long had a reputation for shopping locally and eating more fresh food than consumers in the US and UK, but steep rises in the price of groceries have changed their habits. In addition, France's biggest retailers have gone to war with big multinational food and drink companies over prices. The farmers' protests come ahead of European elections this summer, where French President Emmanuel Macron risks losing more ground to the far right. Union bosses called off the blockades on January 27 after concessions were announced by the new French Prime Minister. Biden warns of a nightmare future for the country if Trump should win again, and lists reasons why. The Globe and Mail. U.S. President Joe Biden has warned that a second term for former President Donald Trump would be a nightmare for the country. Speaking to Nevada Democrats, Biden criticized Trump's controversial statements and actions during his time in office. He also emphasized the importance of winning back the House and Senate, saying that doing so would mean we saved American democracy. In response, Trump's campaign spokesperson described Biden as a nightmare for the country during his first 3 years in the White House. Biden won Nevada in the 2020 election by less than 3 percentage points. Riverside football, 4 decorated players commit to Mount Union, will sign on February 7. Yahoo! A quartet of Riverside High School students in Ohio have decided to attend Mount Union University in Alliance next year. The four student athletes have had a lot of success together and have won a lot of games, so they are looking to continue that success together at the next level. Lawmakers advance Bill of Rights for student loan borrowers. Yahoo! A bill before the New Mexico legislature this session seeks to ease some of the confusion surrounding student loans. Known as the State Student Loan Bill of Rights, House Bill 71 would regulate student loan servicers, delineate unfair trade practices, specify additional rights for some consignors and disabled borrowers, and create the Office of the Student Loan Ombudsman, intended to help students register complaints and gather information about their loans before and after borrowing. The bill was approved by the House Education Committee in a 7-3 vote and will move next to the House Commerce and Economic Development Committee. Australian writer Yang Hingjuan sentenced to death on China spy charges. Al Jazeera. Australian writer Yang Hingjuan has been sentenced to a suspended death sentence by a Chinese court on espionage charges. The sentence could be commuted to life imprisonment for good behavior. The Australian government has expressed outrage at the outcome and plans to respond in strong terms, including summoning the Chinese ambassador. Yang, a blogger and pro-democracy activist, was arrested in January 2019 and accused of endangering national security. He has denied the charges. Supporters claim that Yang is being punished for his criticism of human rights abuses in China. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news and analysis. Let's dive right in. First, we have the shocking news from Australia, where writer and democracy activist Yang Hingjuan has been handed a suspended death sentence by a Chinese court. Australia has expressed its concerns and summoned the Chinese ambassador. This case highlights the complex relationship between Australia and China, and the tensions that exist between the two countries. Moving on, we have an interesting opinion piece from Bloomberg that challenges the negative perception of the nanny state. The article argues that government intervention is necessary to protect public health in an age of powerful corporations and preference-shaping algorithms. It's a thought-provoking take on the role of government in our lives. In Australia, St. Mary's Cathedral College, the oldest Catholic school in the country, has opened applications for girls to enroll alongside boys for the first time. This move has garnered both support and opposition, highlighting the ongoing discussions around gender equality and education. Next, we have an intriguing story from the U.S., where the Supreme Court is set to hear arguments over whether Donald Trump can remain on the ballot in Colorado. This case revolves around Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, a provision that has rarely been used in court. It's a fascinating example of how obscure legal provisions can suddenly come into the spotlight. In Japan, a recent survey has shown that 1 in 5 university students do not want to have children. Financial concerns are cited as one of the main reasons for this trend, reflecting the economic pressures faced by young people today. This survey highlights the impact of economic factors on life choices and raises questions about the future of Japan's population. Turning to sports, we have news that Cliff Kingsbury, former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, has been hired as the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are looking to rebuild their team, and Kingsbury is seen as a key figure in this process. It will be interesting to see how he transforms the team's offensive strategy. On the technology front, China is increasingly using RISC-V, an open-source instruction set architecture, to reduce its dependence on Western technology and circumvent U.S. sanctions. This move highlights China's efforts to develop its own technological capabilities and assert its independence in the global tech arena. In Kenya, the introduction of big-headed ants has disrupted the ecosystem in the Ol Pejeta Conservancy, with implications for elephants and lions. This story highlights the delicate balance of nature and the unintended consequences of introducing non-native species. In France, farmers are protesting against low pay and burdensome regulations that they believe are threatening the country's ability to feed itself. This struggle reflects the broader challenges faced by farmers around the world and raises questions about the future of agriculture. And finally, U.S. President Joe Biden has warned that a second term for former President Donald Trump would be a nightmare for the country. Biden's remarks come as he emphasizes the importance of winning back the House and Senate to protect American democracy. The political battles continue in the U.S., and the stakes are high. That's all for today's news roundup. Now, I'd like to hear from you, my esteemed audience. What are your thoughts on these stories? Do you agree with the need for government intervention to protect public health? What do you think about the suspended death sentence for Yang Hingjuan? And how about the upcoming Supreme Court case on Donald Trump's eligibility? I welcome your questions and discussions. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.